better. Oh, give me some space. Oh, yeah. 3, 2, 1.
ذلك
3, 2, 1.
ذلك
Cool. Taste is successful. Oh shit. Schwarzen. Excuse. Oh, astaghfirullah.
لا يدخل
I don't know if you could tell, but I'm in a better mood than I was yesterday. Hello, hi, how's it going? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. 3, 2. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed, and I'm happy to take you through the fourth and final section. I believe it's the fourth section, and the final section of Surah Al-Hajj, the chapter of the pilgrimage. And I'm always reminded, as I always read the Quran, that I love the Quran. I love learning about the Quran. I find it very fascinating. I think it's very interesting. But let me explain what we're doing here. This is an educational channel where I am kind of sharing with you my education journey through the Quran. I speak Arabic and English. I studied Arabic in school, but not beyond that. And this is my first read through a lot of the Quran. And I believe it is the Word of God as revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So I'm trying to understand what it says, or specifically what I understand from what it says, based off of the words and the translations. If you see something that you disagree with or have a different perspective on, please feel free to drop a comment. I'd love to learn from you as much as I hope that maybe you can learn something from me, but I mean, who am I? Right? I'm just a person trying to learn the Quran as best as I can and understand it as best as I can and share with you my thoughts. Cool? Cool. Then let's get into it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And off we go.
ذلك ومن عاقب بمثل ما عوقب به ثم بغي عليه لينصرنه الله إن الله لعفو غفور.
Okay, so it starts it's saying that is so, but it's like saying a continuation from the previous verses. This verse doesn't exactly explain it, but this verse talks about those that immigrated in the way of God and they were killed or they died. Then God will bless them, and indeed He is the best of blessers. And He continues saying He'll bring them into a place that He's pleased with, and God is most knowing and most forbearing. So essentially, those who immigrate for religion, those who strive for it, who move, who leave their homes to kind of spread it, to kind of... I think this also covers pilgrimage, right? Because you're traveling for religion, so to speak. So that is what that is referring to. And then it adds in saying, and whoever... It's very interesting. I'm going to use the same words. Whoever punishes in the way that they were punished. So obviously retaliates with the way that they made to suffer is a bit easier to understand it from an English perspective, but it's the same word. Aqaba. Uqiba. Aqaba means he did the thing. Uqiba means it was done to him. And what is it saying? He was retaliated with the like that he was made to suffer in it, which you may be new to this channel, but we've covered before in the Quran. The eye to an eye is also not just a Jewish concept, but it's also a concept found in Islam. It is one that is not found in Christianity. But I have lots of comments and questions about Christianity in general, but it's something that the Jews and the Muslims have in common. So usually if someone kills one of yours, you can kill one of theirs. Now, whether or not this is the right thing to do is not what I'm here to discuss. I'm here to discuss what's in the Quran. And the Quran says whoever does that, whoever, gives what he received, and then was oppressed upon him, oppressed upon him is the right word, baghi. Here they're saying, and then they're wronged again, which I don't think that's exact phrasing. ثم بغي عليه. So he gave as he was returned, and then he was oppressed, which is a very interesting expression. It means like something has happened to him after he delivered what was prescribed upon him by the Quran. It says God will surely help him. And then indeed God is oft pardoning and oft forgiving, which is an interesting way of saying how God will help you, because you're saying God's going to help by pardoning or by forgiving. And maybe that's a kind of compensation. Because in the end of the day, what we're all praying for is God's forgiveness and God's mercy. So this verse kind of confused me a little bit. Because I'm like, whoever retaliates in equivalence to the injury they received and then are wronged again. Simple terms, that's kind of what it's saying, but I feel like it's not exactly accurate and it's not reflecting a bit of the flavor. But it does say that God will help them. So essentially saying God will help those who act according to the letter of his law with regards to retaliation, but then get oppressed. And God is ever pardoning, all forgiving. I guess I'm just missing the kind of the why behind this, but I mean it makes sense, right? It's the past couple of verses have all been talking about who God helps and why, or for what reason, not necessarily why, but this is one of the reasons that God would help you. And then it gives something very beautiful that kind of, I thought this was very wonderful, but let's get into it first.
ذلك بأن الله يولج الليل في النهار ويولج النهار في الليل وأن الله سميع بصير.
So here we're kind of given a why, but it's given a why in a way that you really have to think about and ponder. It says, and that is because God causes to enter kind of the symbol that I'm seeing in my head is yin and yang, right? Dark and light. Causes to enter the night into the day and causes to enter the day into the night. And I just saw this beautiful symbiotic relationship of night, of darkness, of summer, of winter, of like the way that life maintains balance is the reason given for the above. Which indicates what? That the principle that has been shared to us, the eye for an eye, the soul for a soul, is designed to maintain balance. And like personally, it's not an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind is an expression that I had learned, and I kind of understood that when I was young, and I could never imagine like if someone killed someone of mine, I'd kill one of theirs. It sounds wild. But I think as I'm maturing and as I'm growing older, I'm able to digest the more difficult lessons of the Quran better. And I'm able to understand them a bit better. And understand their place. Specifically when you see so many injustices in the world and so many darkness and so much transgression from one side to the other. It's not like an eye for an eye is going to solve this issue. But theoretically, if everyone was at a level playing field and everyone had the same ability, then an eye for an eye would be a system that can kind of keep it in place. But either way, it's not said. What's said in this is a very beautiful expression. The night merges into the day merges into the night. And it's kind of like, it just gives you this image of balance and saying that God will preserve it, because it ends with saying, and indeed God is all hearing and all seeing. So God is the ultimate judge. God is the ultimate controller of the flow of the universe, of everything that you see. And God will maintain that balance. These lessons that we've been given are designed to give us balance. But in the end of the day, God is the arbiter of it all. And I just found it very, very beautiful. Did I mention I love the Quran?
ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأن ما يدعون من دونه هو الباطل وأن ما يدعون من دونه هو الباطل وأن الله هو العلي الكبير.
It's amazing how much my perspective of the Quran has changed since I first started reading to now. But yeah, let's get into it first. That is because God is, now the word here is used is the truth, but you'll see if you saw my discussions with Safa, al-haq doesn't just mean the truth. Sometimes it means justice. Sometimes it means correct. I mean, like, in a way, truth is the simplest form of expressing justice, because justice is what's right. Justice is what's true. Justice is what's supposed to happen, right? It's kind of this, yeah, that's the right statement. And it's saying God is that right statement. God is that perspective. And that whatever they invoke from besides him is falsehood. And indeed, God is the Most High and the Most Great. And the reason why I brought up before I started reading this verse is how different my perspective has become since reading the Quran. When I first started reading the Quran, I used to see, why does the Quran keep praising God so much? Like, why? In my mind, I was thinking of God as a human, and I was like, why does he constantly need praise? If God is great, why does he need to say God is great every 2 minutes? And I didn't quite understand it, and I was kind of treating God as a human in my mind, which is kind of the first mistake that you make. If you think of it as a human asking for praise, then you're like, oh, okay, you're arrogant, you're self-absorbed, you're focused. I think the transition that has happened to me since I started reading the Quran to now is that I started to think of God more as the force of the universe, the life, the everything. Not think of it as a person, but think of it like the way that I explain it to non-religious people is think of God as the universe. The universe exists. The universe behaves in mysterious ways, and thinking of God as a human is a limited view. And then I realized once I got to that page that trying to have an image of God in your mind is overwhelming. It's like, it's not something that our brains can really process. It's something that is like, it's beyond our understanding, beyond our intensities. And that's where these phrases, Huwa al-Aliyu al-Kabir, it's kind of like reminding us of our humbleness and reminding us of God's power. And in a way, trying to help us understand what God is via the mechanism of these words. And there's just some great reverence in it and a great humbleness in it and I feel like the more that my ego was reduced, the more that I prayed, the more that I became humble, the easier I was able to see this. And when I first started reading the Quran, I was too arrogant and I was too egotistical, and I was like, why is he great? I'm great. Yeah, kind of like that. It's just amazing. The Quran has changed me in beautiful ways. And I'm very, very happy and grateful to be here. Yeah.
ألم تر أن الله أنزل من السماء ماء فتصبح الأرض مخضرة إن الله لطيف خبير.
Yeah, and here we kind of a lot of these verses try to explain to us what God is, how God works, what makes God unique. And it says, have you not seen that God sends down from the sky water so that it becomes earth that is green? No, don't bother me. And indeed, God is surely subtle and all aware, which I like the word kind, but subtle, like soft, like, anyway. Yeah, so here it's saying that you do not see that God sends down rain from the sky and the earth becomes green. Surely God is most subtle, most aware. And here is where I struggle a bit, because, for instance, someone was telling me that the reason why they liked the Greek gods, they were kind of an atheist. They didn't really believe. And they said the reason why they liked Greek gods is because they kind of like explained the weather in terms of allegories and tales and an entity that you can think of, and this is responsible for this weather, and this is responsible for that weather, which is like, therein lies the challenge of believing in God, is how we claim that, well, God claims, and we repeat his message, that God is responsible for life, for the flow of water, for everything. And they claim their gods are too, but like, how do you validate that this came from God? It's still a question that I kind of struggle with. The one that I did like is that, and we're going to get to that example in a bit, like what do people create? What do their gods create? Like, you say this God does all these things. What have they created in this world? Find me one thing that is created by a God. I don't know if others claim that gods create something, but that's not something that I have seen or heard. I don't know enough about pagan gods. We're going to get into a lot of examples about how God differs from the other gods, and we're going to give a wonderful example. But first, it continues to describe God.
له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن الله لهو الغني الحميد.
God is for him what is in the heavens and what is in the earth, and indeed he is surely free of need. The word is rich, because like, if you're rich, you don't need anything, right? You have everything that you need. You don't have anything to rich, not talking monetarily rich, but rich in many things. And he is the praiseworthy. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth. More examples.
ألم تر أن الله سخر لكم ما في الأرض والفلك تجري في البحر بأمره ويمسك السماء أن تقع على الأرض إلا بإذنه إن الله بالناس لرؤوف رحيم.
Yeah. It's always do you see, but you don't actually physically see it. But do you not see, because it's a mentally see, do you get it in your head? Do you not see that God subjected, it's that word again, made possible for you that what is in the earth, and the ships that sail through the sea by his command, and withholds the sky so that it doesn't fall on the earth except by his permission. And I've had people on this channel kind of be happy about the invisible columns that hold up the sky time and time again. And indeed, God is to people full of kindness and most merciful. What is the footnote? I don't understand why there'd be a footnote here. Do you not see that God has subjected to you for your service? Okay. Great footnote.
وهو الذي أحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم إن الإنسان لكفور.
He's the one who gives you life, then he will cause you to die, then he will give you life again, which again indicates Judgment Day, indicates when we will be reborn into eternal lives. We go to heaven or we go to hell. And when I was reading this, I had seen a mistake that I had explained a while ago. But we're learning from the Quran, right? The more that we read, the more that we gain knowledge. Indeed, man or human is surely ungrateful. And it's kind of a very, very powerful... Mr. Matar. Oh, message redacted. Oh no, where'd you go? But yeah, surely it's ungrateful. Surely a human is ungrateful, and it's kind of like, yeah, we sometimes forget that life is a miracle, right? And that being around is a miracle. We're reminded at it, obviously, in times of death. We're reminded at it, obviously, in times when our sickness, our health is threatened. That really how precious life is. Like, if you've lost a loved one that is very close to you at a very early age, then you feel it in your bones, and you carry that lesson with you, and it changes you for better or for worse. But the fact that we're given life is also beautiful. And yeah, some people kind of argue saying that they didn't really wish for it. So it's a bit interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about ungrateful humans, and then they wish that they didn't have life, which is kind of like it's a complete waste because they underestimate their significance, their ability, their power to change, their effect on other people. Like there's a lot of good things about a lot of good things, but human nature is to be ungrateful, and there are many verses of the Quran that say that for sure.
لكل أمة جعلنا منسكا هم ناسكوه فلا ينازعنك في الأمر وادع إلى ربك إنك لعلى هدى مستقيم.
Okay, this is very interesting. Because you know, on this channel we love to talk about the difference between Jews, Christians, and Muslims. I'm here. I just deleted what I wrote as I clicked enter by mistake. No worries, Mr. Matar. Hello, hi, welcome to the live channel. Nice to have you here. It says, for every nation we have made a rite for them so that they can perform it. And here we do see differences in the way that Jews carry out their rites, in the way that Christians carry out their rites, in the way that Muslims carry out their rites. And then it says, so do not let them dispute with you in the matter. And it doesn't say the Prophet, but this kind of indicates it is about the Prophet because it is talking about a specific time. However, again, as I always say, it might apply to further situations. It just says, but invite وَادْعُ إِلَى رَبَّكَ, and pray to your God. Oh, invite them to your Lord. Oh, okay. So here it's saying that, you know, they have their own rights, they have their own ways to perform it, but don't let it dispute you. Just invite them to your Lord. Indeed, surely you are on a guidance that is straight. I was thinking this was talking about Jews, Christians, and Muslims, but if he's saying invite them to your Lord, invite them to your God, then it kind of sounds like, okay, but it's still saying for every nation we have made a right for them to perform it. So don't let them dispute with you in the matter. So again, it's saying if we have made the right for them to perform, then it is an indication that it is coming from God. Therefore, I assume it was the Abrahamic faiths. وَادْعُ إِلَى رَبِّكَ. I thought it was pray to your Lord, but it's saying invite to your Lord, for you are truly on the guidance. Essentially what this is saying is this is telling the Prophet not to argue with them about how they pray and what the rituals are, but just to invite to God. And it also doesn't say invite to your rights. It says invite to your God. And indeed you are surely on a guidance that is straight. And this does feel like it's specifically directed to Prophet Muhammad, but again, it's not mentioned him, so it might apply to some time in the future. And it continues.
وَإِن جَادَلُوكَ فَقُلِ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ.
And if they argue with you, then say God is most knowing about what you do. God knows best about what you do. So essentially, these whole verses are telling the Prophet, let's just keep it simple and talk about the Prophet, to not argue with people about their rights, to not argue about what is right, what is wrong, and just don't argue with them, and just say God knows better about what you do. And then we see a verse that I kind of have talked about in Surah Al-Baqarah, but let's talk about it here.
الله يحكم بينكم يوم القيامة فيما كنتم فيه تختلفون.
And this is also why I thought it was about Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, because I've seen this verse before, and the Quran does talk about these concepts before. It says, God will judge between you on the day of resurrection about what you used to differ in it. And we've heard this, I think, twice in the Quran so far. The first time was talking about the direction of prayer, and that the Muslims had changed the direction of prayer from Masjid al-Aqsa to Masjid al-Haram. And in that verse, it was said that the reason was there because it wanted to let them yastabiqu bil khayrat, which means to race in doing good deeds. There was another example of it. I don't remember the specific context of it, but I do remember that it was said a second time, and this phrase was, you'll see on the day of judgment what you used to differ upon and what used to make differences, and which kind of like, again, touches upon a theme and understanding that I've had in the Quran for quite some time, is that God intended for there to be Jews, Christians, and Muslims. God intended for there to be differences, and he intended different practices for different groups, and we will find out at the end of time why, what, where, when, how. But the main message here is don't argue, just invite to God. And however a person wants to go to God, I think from the ways that God has revealed himself to us, they can. As long as they follow the tenets of God, being there's only one God. And then you can expand upon that, believing in the afterlife, believing in the angels, believing in his messengers. Allah will judge between all people, so it doesn't have to be only Jews and Christians. Yeah, true. Also, it's not just Jews and Christians. That's the first thing that comes to my mind because I particularly focused on the Abrahamic religions, but there are more that differ in it, and there are more that have rights. And like we talked about the Sabi'in, and we talk about, I don't know if the Majin are considered going to heaven, so I'm not going to argue in it, but more than Christians and Jews. But generally, we're talking about belief in God, for sure. Good point, Mr. Matar.
ألم تعلم أن الله يعلم ما في السماء والأرض إن ذلك في كتاب إن ذلك على الله يسير.
Yeah. So it says, do you not know that God knows what is in the heavens and what is in the heaven and earth? And indeed, that is in a record, a book. That is in a record, a book. And indeed, that is for God very easy, which touches upon this whole section that we've been looking at. And we've been looking at God being the overseer of a lot of life, and trusting that God will work upon the disputes between us on the points where we kind of try and enact his justice but still feel oppressed, God, that we can trust God to be there. The same element is kind of shared over here. Do you not know that God knows what's in the earth and heaven? And that is indeed the word is book, but it's written clearly in a record, which kind of indicates, is it like the same? Because there are multiple versions of kitab in the Quran. Some of them refer to a part of it, which is the Quran, which is the Zabur, the Injil. Zabur is the David Psalms. The Injil is not exactly the Bible or the Gospels, but it's something close to it. It's what was brought to Jesus. And Al-Torah, which was given to the Jews. But there was also al-Kitab that was once mentioned, and that feels like a super record, a super book. This might be referring to that. This might be referring to the same thing, but it might be something different. It's just a very interesting, specific phrase. And it's very possible, very easy for God to know everything in the heaven and the earth. And this is also kind of, I thought for me it was a no-brainer, but I've spoken to people, and they seem to have perspectives on the limitations of God's knowledge. And I've heard some people say things like, oh, this wasn't a part of God's plan, or this wasn't that, or like, there is a misunderstanding about the nature of God. And all-knowing is one of the most important, not one of the most, but it's just one of the descriptions of God. God does know everything, and everything is in a book or a record. A record makes more sense because a book is just you just imagine that thing. But even among Muslims we differ. Correct, Mr. Matar. Yeah, Muslims differ about God, differ about the perspective, and differ about the journey.
ويعبدون من دون الله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا وما ليس لهم به علم وما للظالمين من نصير.
Which brings me to an interesting point about Christianity. I've kind of touched upon it last episode, but and they worship from besides God what has not been set down for it by any authority, and what they do not have of it any knowledge, and the wrongdoers will not have any helper. Now, the reason why I want to kind of highlight this specific phrase is the first person that comes to mind when I think of this is kind of one of the founding fathers of Christianity, Paul, or Saul of Tarsus, who claimed to have seen Jesus in a vision 70 years after his death, and thus he converted, and thus he charged forward, and he created a lot of the tenets that are within Christianity today, and a lot of the statements and things that we understand from Christianity today are based off of Paul, but his original name was Saul of Tarsus. And the question that I always have is, who the heck is Paul? Was he sent down? We all know Jesus. Jesus was kind of sent down with specific divine instruction, and he has a lot of guidance and a lot of wisdom, and he shared a lot of lessons, and he was a magnanimous man. And the Quran does label him as both the Messiah and a prophet and a messenger, and Jesus holds a very special role in Islam and in God's perspective in general. But then some people outside of Jesus shaped the ideology of Christianity, and the question is, did they have authority to do so, or did they not? I'm not going to make any claims about whether they did or they didn't, but I'm going to say the statement that the Quran is telling us, and they worship from besides God what has not been sent down forth with any authority, and what they do not have in any knowledge, which can be a specific thing, but it can be a lot more general thing. Can also happen within the Muslims, even as Mr. Matar has pointed. Some people kind of deviate from what God has sent or God has revealed. And they kind of, some people have claimed authority over God's perspective, God's words, God's identity, God's truth, while they do not have the authority nor the knowledge. And therein lies a lot of the frustrations with regards to religion.
وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ تَعْرِفُ فِي وُجُوهِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الْمُنكَرَ يَكَادُونَ يَسْطُونَ بِالَّذِينَ يَتْلُونَ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِنَا قُلْ أَفَأُنَبِّئُكُم بِشَرٍّ مِّن ذَلِكُمْ النار وعدها الله الذين كفروا وبئس المصير.
Yeah, and here it kind of gives an example of, and when you recited on them are verses that are clear. And again, thanks to Mahab for pointing out that clear verses doesn't mean that we understand them fully, but they're clearly from God. Anyway, you'll recognize in the faces of those who disbelieve the denial. The denial will be clear on the faces of those who disbelieve, and they're kind of like and they almost attack those that are reciting upon them our verses. It's a kind of important perspective to see the effect that God's verses have on disbelievers, on people who deny, on people who claim authority, and people who claim to speak on God's behalf. But the response is, what should you do when you see those people that are kind of almost about to attack? Say, shall I inform you of something worse than that? And again, here it's understood that it's talking to the Prophet, but we can kind of expand it beyond that. Say, shall I inform you worse than that? A fire that God has promised for those who disbelieve, essentially kind of bringing it back to God. Not saying that I will retaliate against you, not saying that I will force you, but saying that the fire will be enough to kind of combat your disbelief. And what a wretched destination it is.
يا أيها الناس ضرب مثل فاستمعوا له إن الذين تدعون من دون الله لن يخلقوا ذبابا ولو اجتمعوا له وإن يسلبهم الذباب شيئا لا يستنقذوه منه ضعف الطالب والمطلوب.
It's a beautiful example, and it is a read. Okay, it says, O ye mankind, O ye people, O ye humans. Set forth an example, so listen to it. We're setting forth an example, so listen to it. Indeed, those who you invoke from besides God, they will not be able to create a fly, even if they all gathered together. And this is one of the examples that I've always loved as a counterpoint to a lot of the entities that people pray to that isn't God. Like, for instance, I've always mentioned them, like the Lucifers, the Hecates, the Tutu Antar. And the question that I've always had, and that I find fantastic, is what did those things that you call gods create? And the example that is set here, can they create a fly? Something as simple as a fly. But then you think simple as a fly, but the more that you study into it, the more the biology of it, you look into it, you're like, well, it's actually, this stupid, annoying, buzzing thing is actually much more complex, has a lot of eyes, has so many wings, how does it fly so fast, how does it react so fast? Like, in an example, it's giving you something tiny, but also showing the magnanimous ability of God and the limitation of those which they evoke aside from God. Is like, can you create a fly if you all got together? And then it even goes further to say, and if the fly snatched away from them anything, they're not even able to take it back from it. Because again, a fly has, ability to kind of see from a lot of different angles, and catching a fly or stopping a fly, or like even as small as this fly thing, once you and your gods try to get to it, try to stop it, you're unable to even retrieve anything from it. You're not able to take anything back. You can't stop it. It's beyond your ability. It's kind of very frustrating. It's such a beautiful example of the simplicity of choosing something simple that is impossible for you to create and impossible for you to defend yourself against, should you try. Like, it ends with saying, so weak are the seeker and the one who is sought. It's kind of talking about those who seek and those who are sought. Those who are sought, obviously the gods that they pray to. They can't do something as simple as a fly, helping a fly. Very interesting example. And I prefer this over the other examples we've kind of taken. There's a footnote. Let's kind of take a seat. Another possible translation: how weak are the seekers, the idols, and the sought? The fly? No, I think the seeker and the sought are those who invoke and those who are invoked. I think that makes more sense. الطالب والمطلوب for sure.
ما قدر الله حق قدره إن الله لقوي عزيز.
And that's kind of it's funny that I started the verses explaining that, and it kind of ends with this. It is not they did not properly estimate God, or they did not give God his due with his estimation. They did not estimate what God is, or understand what God is. And indeed, God is surely strong and almighty. And again, this episode started with me saying that once I reduced my ego, I was able to appreciate this statement and appreciate that this is helping us understand what God is and his glory and his magnanimity. And that these examples are kind of this example of the fly, of something so small yet so impossible for them to create, yet they can't even stop it, is an indication of showing you the tiniest of God's creations. And then you think about, okay, then you zoom out from the fly and you look at the universe. The universe is full of things. The only one thing that has claimed to have created everything, and that is God. I don't believe that there's any other deities that kind of do that, but let's not get into too many. But the point of these verses is to kind of remind us about God's glory, and to help us understand God and understand why we should trust him as the trustee of all affairs, and that he will be just and he will act in haqq, that word that we've seen time and time again.
الله يصطفي من الملائكة رسلا ومن الناس إن الله سميع بصير.
God chooses from the angels messengers and from mankind. Indeed, God is all-hearing and all-seeing, which I was like, okay. God chooses messengers of angels and humans to send them throughout, and then it ends with saying God is all-hearing and all-seeing. I guess the difference between the messengers is that messengers are how God communicates, but hearing and seeing is that God sees and hears everything. So there's kind of like a difference between the two, right? In order for God to communicate, usually he sends a messenger, but he knows and hears everything. And it also kind of ties back to where he sends the messengers and how he sends the messengers, because he knows exactly where to send them at exactly the right time and the right moment to get his message across. Like, it's amazing just how any one verse of the Quran has such intricacies and it connects with itself quite beautifully. It's, miraculous, but I think I've been gushing over the Quran a little bit too hard this episode, but I love the Quran. What can I say?
يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم وإلى الله ترجع الأمور.
Yeah, he knows what is before them and what is behind them, and usually this is an understanding of time, like what they have done and what they're going to do, or what they've done is in their past and what they're going to do is in front of them. At least that's how it's mostly understood, because this phrase is expressed quite a lot in the Quran. يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ. And I think it's about time, but there could be another explanation about it.
Allahi.
Oops. And to God, to God returns all matters. God knows all, and God decides all. I think that's kind of the power of it.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا اركعوا واسجدوا واعبدوا ربكم وافعلوا الخير لعلكم تفلحون.
O ye who believe, O ye of those who believe, bow and prostrate and worship your Lord, and do good deeds so that you may be successful. There's always the symbol, the annotation saying that you should prostrate at this point in time, which I will do so right after the last verse that we do. But generally the message from God is, even within this one statement, the message from God is very simple. Devote to God, worship God. And by bowing and prostrating, it's an act of reminding ourselves of the power and the glory of God and our humble nature. It's a sign of respect. It's a sign of reverence. It's a sign of understanding how the universe works. It's a sign of understanding our relationship to God. And honestly, it brings us a lot of joy, happiness, and peace. We have the last verse for today.
وجاهدوا في الله حق جهاده هو اجتباكم وما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج ملة أبيكم إبراهيم هو سماكم المسلمين من قبل وفي هذا ليكون الرسول شهيدا عليكم وتكونوا شهداء على الناس فأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة واعتصموا بالله هو مولاكم فنعم المولى ونعم النصير.
SubhanAllah. I don't know if it's the reciter and the way that he's reciting them, or it's the words, or it's a combination of both, but I don't know. This just is quite beautiful. And it kind of feels like a summary, a main point, a perspective. Let's see what it says. And strive for God, haqqa jahada, strive for Him. That word again, justly striving the way He deserves, the right way, the correct way, the true way. Strive for Him in the way that He deserves. He's the one who has chosen you, and He has not placed upon you in a religion from any difficulty. When laid upon you no hardship, no difficulty in religion. And that's kind of like an interesting statement, right? Because when you first kind of approach religion, or not necessarily when you first approach, let me kind of give you an example of how I was growing up before I properly believed to where I am now. Before I properly believed, praying felt like a chore and felt like difficult, and fasting felt like a chore and felt like difficult, but I was still doing them, but I was like, they seem to be difficult. So it is only upon growing up and having the belief and having the understanding in God and having the understanding of what this all means, and that prayer is for me, and that fasting is for me, and that these benefits that I gain from it far outweigh anything. Like I'm not praying for God's sake, I'm praying for my sake, you know? Once I kind of shifted that perspective and shifted that understanding, did this statement make the most sense? Religion is not about doing what is difficult. Religion is about doing what is right. And when you do what's right, it's good for you. It's kind of like eating vegetables. It's kind of like, you know, eating a well-balanced diet. You know, oh, this is difficult. But then once you start doing it, you're like, oh, actually, this is kind of fantastic. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of beautiful. And then I continue saying that it's the religion of your father, Abraham. Our forefathers always Abraham for all the Abrahamic religions, aka Abraham is the name. And then it says he named you Muslims, which again, I don't think that the name Muslims was applicable from the time of Abraham, because again, the Jews and the Christians came first and they didn't call themselves Muslims. It was only the people that followed Muhammad. But he named you Muslims is a very interesting concept, because Muslims means something. So he named you those who submit. Yeah, who named you the ones who submit. And there's a little caveat here, i.e. Muslims. Muslims just means those who submit. Like a lot of people kind of don't understand where their name comes from, but it's so interesting to see he named you Muslims from before. And in this, so that it may be the messenger as a witness over you, and so that you may be witnesses over mankind. He named you Muslims so that the messenger can be a witness over you, and you can be witnesses over mankind. In the name of Muslims? I guess it means in the meaning of the name Muslims, those who submit to God, those who have that reverence for God, and those who bow down, so that the messenger can be a witness upon them, and you may be witnesses on mankind. It's a very interesting phrasing. Submit, so that the prophet, the messenger, can be a witness over you, so that you can be a messenger, so that you can be witnesses over the world. Very interesting. It's an interesting relationship that you see between submission and understanding God, and putting God above you, and figuring out what God is through the messages that he shares, and that somehow that liyakuna, so that the messenger may be over you a witness, and that you may be a witness over the mankind. Very, very interesting connection, and an interesting consequence of steps and facts. And then it ends with, so establish prayer and give alms tax. Zakat, give to the needy, give to the poor, a portion, a fraction of your income, of your wealth, and hold fast to God. He is your protector. فَنِعْمَ الْمَوْلَى وَنِعْمَ النَّصِيرُ. What an excellent protector and what an excellent helper. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sadaq Allah al-Ali al-Azim. And yeah, that's it for today. That's Surah Al-Hajj. Very interesting. Some complex ideas, some complex topics. I like this last section the most because it kind of, I don't know, it just reminded me of being humble towards God and reminded me of how to think of God. And I think it was very beautiful. I love the Quran. I think I've said that many times this episode. And the next chapter that we are going to begin tomorrow, because today's Thursday, yes. Tomorrow there should be an episode as well. Al-Mu'minun, which means the believers. So very excited. I think it's going to be a new chapter for me, but I'm not sure. We'll find out. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Ma'as-salami. Okay. The episode's finished. Thanks for watching YouTube. I got 3 concurrent viewers. I'm very happy. Oh, late night book reading. Howie, I Can Catch a Fly. Is it my imagination or did the writing tone? I don't know. I can't explain it. Seem to be different or taking a different way tone since. I didn't see. You didn't stop at the start though? Oh, yeah, but I stopped at the end of the chapter. And the way that I might write my episodes, I always put them per chapter. So I know stars kind of end, but like if the next chapter, the star ends in the first couple of verses, I skip the first star and I keep going forward, you know? But Mohab, I don't know if you're still here on Twitch. Is it my imagination or the writing tone? I don't know if I can tell it seemed different or taking a different way tone. Were you talking about the last verse, Mohab? Mohab, I want to know. What are you talking about the last verse? I think he's gone because I wasn't noticing it. Whoopsie. Anyway, I'm going to say thank you, YouTube, for watching. I'm going to say goodbye, YouTube. The episode will be up shortly, but I mean, you can rewatch this whole episode. You can watch however you like.